All right, today we're talking with Army veteran Ahmad Burse. He's a career coach for professional engineers. Ahmad, welcome to the show. Before we get to talking about your coaching business and what you're doing these days, consulting, take us back. Tell us what you did in the Army.
There I was, there I was, there I was. I mean, that's the best way the army stories always begin. But in any instance, at 17, I joined the army. I wanted to see the world. As an infantryman, throughout my career, uh, I was a drill sergeant. I served with a couple different units that jumped out of airplanes, but the most notable is the Second Airborne Division. I
Mm-hmm.
also was a member of the Third United States Infantry, the Old Guard. Uh, we did presidential ceremonies,
Mm-hmm.
and, and I culminated my career working with soldiers who were in transition out of the military, wounded warriors. So then that's kind of the gist of my military career.
Yeah. And so, where did this entrepreneurship thing come from? What was you get out of the Army? Did you have a well defined plan, and how did the transition go for you on the way out of the Army?
Upon transition, when I knew I was going to transition out, and I just say I was blessed enough to actually be able to transition, because
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of my friends, they weren't able to transition. They're like, "Hey, listen, you got 90 days to get out," and
Right.
so I had like about 6 months to kind of plan. So I tried to get as many certifications as I could, and then when I got out, I just kind of sat there because there wasn't anything available. So I became a teacher, and I'll have you know, I left the military in 2012. So I became a teacher, and then I became a HR person working with the Army,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the Army Corps of Engineers, which segues into why I'm a coach for professional engineers.
Yeah.
During that time, when I worked in HR, I helped people resolve a lot of problems specific to the engineering community. A lot of folks are very technologically savvy, but they didn't have those skills to kind of transition them into leadership roles. They didn't have those skills to kind of help them address just normal conflict things. And I realized I was good at it. So from there, I stayed in HR for a little while, and then I'm still resolving conflict, working in HR. So it's like, listen, I think I have a knack for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and start a business and step out on my own. So that's kind of what brought me
Mm-hmm.
here.
So you're dealing with a lot of engineers, technical type people
Yes.
in your HR in your HR role. You realize we see this a lot in those kinds of jobs. Very technical, specialized skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And then who do they make into the leader? Who do they make in who's going to move up as the lead engineer?
Wow.
The best engineer. Well, oftentimes the guy that was the best engineer may not make the best boss. There's that
Absolutely.
sometimes there's that leadership gap. They have to become more of a people person.
Yes. And it's interesting. It's the same thing that I seen in the military. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you have, because I was in the army, you have a good soldier, excellent soldier, and then you make them a team leader, and they just aren't able to be effective. And it's because they haven't been developed. They haven't, honed those skills. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how do you sit down and talk to someone to figure out, hey, what's going on with you? Let's kind of pull this onion back. So throughout my career, I was really good at that. And it's like I was able to, fine tune to pick up things based off of what people said. So then it's like, hey, listen, mate, there's a possibility. No, there isn't a possibility. I can do this professionally. So then that's kind of what moved me into that. But there's a lot of professions, a lot of technical fields where people just haven't developed those skills. And unfortunately, they don't realize they need someone like me, a coach, to assist them until their back's against the wall. Whereas they've watched someone get promoted that they know they're better than, or at least they assume they're better than, or their leadership has said, "Listen, we can't deal with you anymore. You have to change the way you present, the way you speak to people, the way you communicate."
Yeah. Um, where did this entrepreneurship thing come from? Because you had a pretty good HR job and you're dealing with all this. How did you see the opportunity and all that?
To be quite honest with you, it's a to me, it was my time. Uh, I retired from the military. I'm doing a job and I'm doing really well. It's a fine job, but the thing about it is I'm not. I have more. I have less sunrises than I do going on. I'm going down. It's like, well, what am I going to do with my time? So I can sit here and I'm talking to senior people like very, very senior people, and I'm advising them in my job. It's like, hold on now, is my time worth this sitting here with them when I can be doing something on my own? And that's for anyone, not just someone who like looks at themselves and say, hey, listen, I'm getting older. You
Hmm.
should start anytime you can, because the day is going to go by anyway, the years are going to go by anyway. So you might as well be doing something that brings you joy, that allows you to give back to the world the way you want to.
Absolutely. Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Right back talking with Army veteran Ahmad Burse from who's a career coach for professional engineers. So, Ahmad, you weren't an engineer yourself. You're working in HR. You're talking with folks about issues and problems going on, leadership roles, and those kind of things. Where was the proverbial light bulb moment where you said, there might be something I can do here?
For me, it's always been there. However, I guess sometimes you just got to say, I'm going to do this. You
Mm-hmm.
can't sit there and allow things to pass. It's like, no, I need to do this now. So then I think it's always been there. Not that I think as an entrepreneur, you have to feel like the value you bring is much greater. And once that clicks in your mind, then it just changes your whole perception of things. It's like, okay, all right, I'm not going to, it makes you say no to a lot of things. And that's why in transitioning from where I was to where I'm at now, it made me say, hey, no, I need to cut I need to stop doing some of the things I'm doing at my job or at the job just over broke, so that I can continue to pursue my career.
Yeah. And so as you started to formulate this plan, were you able to get a couple of clients while you still had the job before you started walking out the door and start that transition into being an entrepreneurship?
Yes, on the clients, still in the transition, just closing shop.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
So um, talk about the first couple of paying clients. What's that like?
well, I think the thing to remember is the value that you're bringing. You start off kind of like cheap, I could say, and then because you don't know what value, because you're changing people's lives literally, and in changing people's lives, what value is that? Is that your time? So then the money is very much not there in the beginning until you realize what your value is. Then you can start commanding greater prices. And the other part about it is it's the the higher price you command, it doesn't necessarily mean you're providing greater value, but what it does mean is that you expect more from yourself. If I'm charging someone X amount of dollars for a consultation and I'm helping them develop their career goals, and I'm charging them this amount of money, then I need to be able to deliver. You have to have integrity about your business. So
Mm-hmm.
then if you don't have that integrity, because you meet some folks are just in it for this and in it for that, but to help someone achieve a goal and then for them to say, hey, listen, thank you. You've really impacted me. You've changed my life. You've allowed me to become something that I didn't think. Because a lot of times you're breathing something into someone that they didn't see for themselves. And that's kind of the way I look at things. Because, and with any relationship where you're developing someone, a lot of times it's confidence. That person, even though you're talking to them about, hey, I want to be a supervisor, it might be that they're dealing with something within a personal relationship that's impacted them, that took them away, that's taken away their confidence. Marriage, children, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
You might come into the conversation with one thing and end up developing into something else.
Right. Now, one of the things, in the coaching business, oftentimes you might start off cheap or even close to free.
Mm.
Um, and over time, you start building a clientele, and then you raise your prices dramatically. And what people find out, I've read about this, listened to other podcasts, and talked to coaches. When you raise your prices dramatically, all of a sudden you become very expensive. You end up getting very quality
Oh,
customers,
oh,
and
absolutely.
it's more of a quality thing as opposed to quantity.
Well, I mean, and I think that's and I guess the thing I'd say to any entrepreneur is know who the client is you want to work with, and then work with that client. Don't compromise yourself, because it becomes a job at that point when you're not working with the people that you want to work with. Because anyone who realizes when you pay a coach, you're putting an investment in yourself, because the goal is I'm not paying them, I'm investing in this coach to help me get to the next spot, so that it's going to help me maybe double, triple my income. It's going to help me, reach some goals that I didn't think about were possible. So that's the type of mindset of people I like to work with. So then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, transitioned into being a full-time coach, how was it, instead of just saying, well, I want to be a coach for everybody, how was it you ditched down like you did and foresight focused on, I'm going to be a coach for engineers?
Engineers build things with their hands. They're
Yeah.
civil engineers. They're building roads. They're building, horizontal, vertical. And so then for me, in that demographic, it's a different conversation. When it's like, hey, uh, so this is what you've done. You were out here slaving to get A, B, C, and D done. And I kind of dig into my role in the military as an infantryman. I mean, because it's as a, I hate to say it, but game recognizes game, real recognizes real.
Uh-huh.
And whenever you talk to someone who's really been through something, you're speaking to them on that level. So to narrow it down to that group of engineers, those folks to me seem like they needed the best support. They're the most overlooked, because people, you see the buildings, you see things being built, you see roads being constructed, but you don't, you see the people building them, but you don't see the people. You understand what I'm saying? So I said,
Yeah.
hey, this group of folks is out there in it. They probably need the most support, and I could probably help them the most.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, as you've moved into the coaching realm, how much of your military experience has entered into being a coach, military leadership experience?
All of it. And I say all of it because uh, it's just interesting. You never know, you never realize what you've learned in your career that's going to impact you to make you more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just, you hear people talk about simple things like making your bed in the morning. Uh, those little steps get you prepared for everything else. Stick to itiveness, uh, doing what you say. When people talk to you, you have a frame of integrity. You have that frame. It's like, okay, I can trust this person. And it's just some of those things. As a leader, those are a lot of the things. As a drill sergeant, so you have to be without reproach. You were supposed to be without reproach. And just caveat with that. But my point being is, you have to look that look, and it comes across even over the phone. It comes across in a podcast, something similar like this. If you're not the real, it shows. So then that whole military. That's my whole. A lot of things. I think I've gotten to a lot of places because of the way I spoke and the way I've supported other people and the way I carried myself, that a lot of people maybe would not have been able to get into. So
Right. Yeah. We oftentimes talk about hard skills versus soft skills. Most civilian employers are looking for hard skills, or at least they think they're looking for hard skills. Those things, you initials behind your name and things that look good as bullets on resumes and things like that. But in the end, it's really soft skills that make the difference when it comes to leadership and become moving up as far as supervisors and directors and everything else in the civilian sector.
Well, and I think the other part about it is a lot of people talk in theory, and that's one of the things I'm very practical. If I wouldn't ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't have done or I wouldn't do. So then when you're talking to people and say, listen, yeah, this, you may not want to do this, but this is the right thing to do. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to go ahead and do it then.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about your exact approach with, if you get a new engineer who sign on as a client, what are some of the first things you do, and what's something the engineer is going to experience from you?
The first thing is that you get a free consultation, and we talk. I mean, at that point I'm interviewing the client to find out whether, hey, we can have a relationship, because sometimes having a client that's not coachable is not fun. It makes you drag your feet to the meeting. So as opposed to that, I'm trying to find out what exactly they're trying to achieve, because maybe what they're trying to achieve, I may not be able to help them. Maybe someone else can. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of assessing, trying to pinpoint, okay, where you want to go? Well, what have you done? Have you tried these things? And then trying to figure out what role I can play, what value I can provide to them. Because that's the bottom line. If I'm not giving you any value, if I'm not giving you something that you can work with, then it's what kind of relationship can we have? And then from there, if we decide, hey, this is something I want to go, we can do the 3 month, or we can do the 6 month. I'll talk about my price points, and then from there, uh, we sign up and we'll begin. So within my program, one of the first things I'm going to do, I want to find out where you're going, assess it, come up with a plan, and then execute. And that's kind of me in a nut roll about how I coach clients. It's like, let's figure out where you're at. Let's figure out where you want to go. What's inhibiting this? So
And all your coaching options are one on one?
yes, for now, yes, one on one. And that's another thing. And for every entrepreneur, like for instance, in the coaching and the coaching, training, speaker role, you kind of hear overlap. I'm focusing on coaching. Find your focus, get really, 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 really good at that. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm studying, I'm learning more all the time to be the best coach that I can be for my clients. So then, and then later on, if that's something else that you're interested in, do that. But any entrepreneur, find out what you want to do and then just be the best at that, not at everything.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of business people in business and professionals out there where just using an engineer as an example, um, they don't really have anybody to go to talk about these kind of things. They they can talk to their fellow engineers and the people they work with, but sometimes things going on at work, you may not necessarily want to talk with people at work. Um, do you find yourself, coaching involves a certain amount of therapy, I suppose?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Uh,
after some of these folks working with you for a while, do you ever hear them say, "Wow, where have you been all my life?" Or how did I could have I could have been so much happier, so much farther along if I had done something like this a long time ago.
I have yet to have that conversation. However, I have I have had experiences where people have said, you did change my life. You've
Mhm.
you've made me. I've looked at things. You challenged me. You showed me things that maybe I didn't look at. You helped me change the perspective. And I think that's what the coach does. It's like, okay, hey, this is what you wanted to do. I got your buy-in. Now you're going to go ahead and do it. And if that not, then we're going to have another conversation. But if you're not doing what I'm going to ask you, how do you expect to get the outcome that you want? So then,
Mhm.
that goes again with when I'm having that one-on-one, figuring out what direction do you want to move in? What do you want to do? Yeah.
So, if I ask you, what's the difference between a coach and a consultant? What ideas you have on that?
Well, a coach is someone. So then, like when you have like a coach being someone who's you have certain skill sets,
Hmm.
and maybe those skill sets aren't what you need. They're not there. So I'm coaching you in a direction for you to build those skill sets. As a consultant, I don't look at consulting. I look at consulting as not a one-on-one, but towards an organization.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Coaching is more personal. It's more direct. It's more specified. Well, consultant is more advisory. It's like, okay, these are some things you might want to do to improve your organization's climate. Whereas a coach is like, hey, we talked about uh, you addressing inappropriate behaviors because that's impacting your ability to lead. Let's talk about what you've done about those things. So then that's how I look at coaching versus consulting.
Yeah. Um, what are sorry, I got like three questions I want to ask all at once. In the coaching business, if somebody wants to become a coach, let's say, what are some of the best ways to begin acquiring clients? because that could be a huge obstacle. How do I start a coaching business from scratch? I mean, what are some of the things that you experience in your initial startup, and how to acquire clients?
I would say acquiring clients, uh, that's lead generation. I use LinkedIn, LinkedIn sales specifically, and go through, and you can excuse me, you can go in and you can sort it for the, like, whenever I'm looking for clients, I'm looking for professional engineers, or engineers that have the PMP certification. Those are the things I'm looking for, because I know that demographic me and that demographic can talk the same talk. So, but the other part about it is, whatever you're going to coach, however you're going to do it, make sure you know what you're comfortable with, and then begin to push that line. It's like, okay, uh, I'm comfortable with talking to this group of people. It's like, okay, all right, so what's my next step moving forward? Have a plan to continue to grow. I wouldn't recommend, because if you don't push yourself, or better yet, I'm sorry, get yourself a coach, because that's what I did. Honestly, get yourself, make an investment in yourself, and get a coach to coach you on how to coach, because
Mhm.
there's things that you don't know. So then that coach can see things within you that you may need to do. So that's what
Yeah.
I highly recommend that.
So it's kind of hard to be a coach and not have a coach yourself, or
Yeah, it is, because
just
how you have we all have blind spots. We all have things we're not aware of. And I think for me, having a coach is, I know everything. I do, but there's a coach that's saying, well, you don't know everything.
right.
And, well, I would never do that. Well, do you want what you want, or do you want what your client wants? So coaches bring that out in you to make you say, hey, okay,
Yeah.
what do I need to look at? What's another direction I can move in?
Yeah. So Matt, if somebody wants to find you, check out what your services are. How do we get in touch with you?
By all means, you can find me on LinkedIn at Ahmad Burse on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email at Ahmad, AHMAD, at Burse Consulting, BURSCONSULTING.com.
Awesome. And if somebody's getting out of the military in regards to entrepreneurship, they want to run their own business, want to run their own show, what kind of advice comes to mind when you're talking about somebody getting out, wanting to get into entrepreneurship?
To be honest with you, set yourself up for like 90 days of nothing. And the only reason I say that is because I've had a lot of friends that got out of the military and they went right into another job. And it's not that, or, they went right into something. Being in the military is a traumatic experience. I'm just being honest, and I'm not being funny. I'm
That's
not being,
hilarious. No, it's so true.
no, am I lying though? It's a traumatic experience. And so you need time to decompress and process.
Yeah.
I don't know how many very senior people I've met who've gotten out of the military and they didn't give themselves that time. And then, a year later, they're depressed. They're alcoholics. And it's because, they couldn't let go of what they once were. So
Mhm.
then give
Yeah.
yourself some time to process. Give yourself some time to not wear boots, to grow your hair out. Give yourself the opportunity to live that civilian life, and figure out what you want to do in your next life. So that's the advice I would give. Because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's in you. You're going to do it. That might not be your thing right now, but if you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great advice. Well, Ahmed, we look forward to seeing your future success as a professional coach and coaching engineers, doing great things out there for people. So appreciate you sharing your entrepreneurial success story.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate being here.
You bet. Thank you, man. All right. These veterans are Oscar Mike.